Democratic Senator Joe Manchin is pouring cold water on Democrats' efforts to impeach Donald Trump. Now, we've talked about this in detail, how this would all go down, especially considering that Donald Trump only has a little over a week left in his term. But first, let's hear the argument made by Manchin and then see if he's making a good point. Take a look.
Is there any scenario where you see that the US Senate would try and convict President Trump?
I don't see any of that because, if there would be 48 Democrats until we seat Warnock and Senator Ossoff. So until that happens, you need 67 votes. I think my arithmetic, that means we have 19 Republicans. I don't see that, and I think the House should know that also. We've been trying to send that message over. They know the votes aren't there. You would think that they would do that. I think this is so ill-advised for Joe Biden to be coming in, trying to heal the country, trying to be the president of all the people when we're going to be so divided and fighting again. If they're trying to do it now, it's not going to happen. He'll be out of office no matter what happens because Mitch is not going to take it up. Mitch is still the majority leader.
So remember, the Senate would not be engaging in a trial after the House votes in favor of the article of impeachment until after Joe Biden has already been inaugurated. In fact, there are some calls by Representative Clyburn, for instance, to wait until Biden's first 100 days are up, and then the new Senate would have the trial and consider convicting Donald Trump based on the article of impeachment. And of course, the impeachment is in response to Donald Trump inciting the insurrectionists and encouraging them to do what they did last week, where they did breach the Capitol. 5 people died as a result. There were pipe bombs found. I mean, it was a complete and utter disaster. Now, the whole point is to ensure that Donald Trump isn't able to run for president again. And remember, the new Senate will have Democrats take control with a slim majority. So the real question here is, what would Joe Manchin do if this trial is held during Biden's administration? Would he vote along with the Democrats? And to be sure, they would need to have more than a simple majority in the Senate to convict Donald Trump. Democrats hold a 10-seat majority in the House, and Republican leadership as of Tuesday had advised members to vote their conscience, making it likely that an impeachment charge will pass with at least several Republicans voting with Democrats. So that's happening in the House. In the Senate, a story just broke today regarding how Senator Mitch McConnell is in favor of the impeachment efforts by Democrats because he wants to ensure that the party can purge Donald Trump, and not have to worry about him in the future. But Ben, I wanted to get your thoughts on all of this. It's really frustrating to hear Democrats, shy away from real consequences for someone like Donald Trump, especially after what happened.
Yeah, and that's if we could even consider Joe Manchin to be a real Democrat, but even other Democrats besides Joe Manchin may be a little squeamish here. But I love the way that this is shaping up to be whether or not Mitch McConnell and the Republican Party wants to really get rid of Donald Trump. If that is the case, then I see that this is going to basically be their only opportunity. So if impeachment stands any chance, it's whether or not the Republican Party wants to actually purge Trump from their party. But again, finally, it won't purge Trumpism, sadly.
Right, I mean, exactly. Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit because I do think it's important to mention that getting rid of Donald Trump and preventing him from having the ability to run again in the future, sure, I guess that's important. I don't know if I ever really bought that he was gonna run again in 2024, but I mean, there were certainly some indications that he was planning for it, fundraising for it. So let's put that off to the side. Getting rid of Donald Trump, though, doesn't get rid of the base that overwhelmingly supports him. Like 75 million Americans voted for him. They looked at the last 4 years in America, the last 4 tumultuous, unstable years in America, and they thought, no, Trump nailed it and I loved it and I'm gonna go ahead and vote for him anyway. Those people exist and they're not gonna go away. So I don't know how, Republicans aren't really planning on addressing that, really. All they've really done is pander to them. But it's something that I think the Democratic Party needs to think strategically about to address it, not in any punitive way, but what can you do to kind of de-radicalize people who have been like, like fed all sorts of insane conspiracy theories through this right-wing echo chamber. Echo chamber.
I'm hoping, if with any luck, this could be analogous to the Scopes trial, where there was the trial of science versus faith, and it kind of set evangelicals back a couple of generations because of the level of embarrassment that came as a result of that trial. I'm wishful thinking here, Anna, but maybe this moment is like that, because I'm seeing more Republicans shy away, and this is obviously anecdotal, and I have to see the data to see if there's really anything statistically significant. But it seems like people are trying to back away from that outer edge that we saw going to the Capitol last week.
Yeah, I mean, because their lives were in danger. It wasn't just about Democrats being targeted. Any Republican lawmaker who wasn't enough of a lackey for Donald Trump was also targeted based on some new reporting that we're seeing in regard to the preparations and the planning that took place prior to the insurrectionists breaching the Capitol. But I also want to remind everyone of where Manchin stood on impeachment when Trump was impeached the first time. Let's take a quick look at that flashback.
Do you think President Trump should be impeached and convicted?
Well, no, there's no doubt about it. He should be impeached, basically. But if we can't do it, you got to be practical about what we're doing now, Jake.
So there's no question that he should be impeached. Again, those were his statements in response to the first impeachment effort where Donald Trump was found to withhold congressionally appropriated funding toward Ukraine unless the leader of Ukraine announced some sort of sham investigation into Biden in order to help Trump get an upper hand in the election. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm tired of we need to be practical here. Even in that statement, can Democrats just understand? No, right now is not the time to be practical. I don't think it was the time to be practical back then when the impeachment proceedings were happening in response to what was going on with Ukraine. In fact, they had a narrow scope in their investigation. They should have broadened the scope to include possible financial crimes as well and violations of the emoluments clause. But it's just frustrating to see. Everyone wants to celebrate that Democrats have this slim majority in the Senate, but Manchin will continue to serve as an obstacle because you're right, Ben. I mean, he's not really a Democrat. He's certainly not even a liberal Democrat. I mean, he agrees with Republicans far too often to be considered a member of the Democratic Party. If anything, he's more independent.
Yeah, and the fact that he so quickly inserted himself as a blockade to that $2,000 just shows you exactly the extent to which he even doesn't care about his own constituents.
That's exactly right. I mean, how do you come out so strongly against something that your own constituents desperately need? And I would venture to say desperately want. And by the way, he did walk back his statements after there was enough backlash, because guess what? Financial relief at a time of crisis is tremendously popular across the board. Doesn't matter what the voters' ideology is, political affiliation is. People are really suffering right now, both Democrats and Republicans. And to have Joe Manchin raise his hand and say oh, no way, $2,000, one-time $2,000 check is just too much. And the fake concerns about that money ending up in the wrong hands, when in reality, so much of that relief money from the CARES Act ended up in the hands of massive corporations and not in the hands of small businesses that desperately needed it. So how about you deal with that?
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.